Coming up on The World Today. U.S. President Donald Trump says no deal with Iran except it succumbs to unconditional surrender. The U.S. leader also insists that he must be involved in picking the next leader in Iran. Plus, British police arrest 4 people on suspicion of spying for Tehran. Welcome everyone to the program. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We begin with the crisis in the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump has been talking tough, saying there will be no deal with Iran unless it accepts an unconditional surrender. The U.S. president's remarks on his Truth Social platform today seem to reject the prospect of a compromise amid Iranian confirmation of diplomatic mediation to end the conflict. He said allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Meanwhile, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian announced earlier that some countries are engaging in mediation efforts to end the war, emphasizing that Iran is committed to peace in the region, but it's prepared to defend itself. In the meantime, President Trump has explicitly rejected Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the late leader Ali Khamenei, as frontrunner for succession as new leader of Iran, calling him a lightweight. Mr. Trump insists that he must be involved in the appointment of Iran's next leader, dismissing the prospects of Khamenei's son assuming the supreme leader's role as unacceptable. A 3-man council running the country is preparing to introduce a new supreme leader. Mojtaba Khamenei has long been considered a contender to the post for the country's next paramount leader, a ruler, even before an Israeli strike killed his father at the start of the war last week, despite the fact that he has never been elected or appointed to a government position. And staying with the conflict, Israel's military says it has launched a new wave of strikes on Iranian regime infrastructure and destroyed a military command bunker in Tehran with 50 fighter jets. The hit on the Iranian capital comes after a heavy bombardment on Beirut. Affected residents described the attacks on Thursday as the worst night so far. Elsewhere, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the second government-sponsored chartered flight to bring home UK nationals has left Oman. Airlines Etihad and Emirates have also confirmed that they will be running a limited number of services from Abu Dhabi and Dubai to the UK over the next few days. And Emirates said it was working to restore full network operations following the partial reopening of regional airspace. Thousands of flights in the Middle East have been cancelled in the past week, leaving many Britons stranded. This followed U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran, which in turn prompted retaliatory strikes by Iran across the Gulf region. The first flight, which landed at Stansted Airport on Friday morning, was delayed by 24 hours following technical issues, but a government minister said commercial flights are by far the most likely and the most rapid route so far. While new flights have been announced, the conflict is rapidly evolving and circumstances around air travel could change as quickly. Meanwhile, the UK Metropolitan Police says 4 people have been arrested on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. Among those taken into custody is 1 Iranian and 3 dual British Iranian nationals. The investigation relates to suspected surveillance of locations and individuals linked to Jewish communities in London. Commander Helen Flanagan, head of counter-terrorism police in London, said the arrests were part of a long-running investigation and part of ongoing work to disrupt malign activity where we suspected. In a statement, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood sought to reassure the public that the UK's police and security services are world-leading and will not hesitate to take action to counter any threats to the UK. Ms. Mahmood says the Met Police will continue to use the full range of tools and powers available to them to keep the country safe, as they have government's full support to carry out their work. Well, the White House has lauded the U.S. House of Representatives for rebuffing a bid to halt President Donald Trump's military action on Iran a day after a similar measure collapsed in the Senate. The House War Powers resolution was rejected in a narrow vote of 219 to 212. In a statement after Thursday's House vote, the White House said Congress have reaffirmed the Commander-in-Chief's constitutional authority to protect the American people from the Iranian regime's murderous, ambitious, and imminent threats. Democrats had criticized President Trump for launching strikes without congressional approval and questioned whether the United States was facing the kind of imminent threat that would justify the president ordering strikes on his own. 4 Democrats, Jared Golden of Maine, Greg Landsman of Ohio, Henry Cuellar of Texas, and Juan Vegas of California, defied their party to help Republicans defeat the War Powers resolution, while the 2 Republicans, Thomas Macy of Kentucky and Warren Davidson of Ohio, crossed the aisle to join the Democrats in support of the legislation. Let's bring you more on this conflict. Chidi Nwanu, security experts and foreign affairs analyst, joins us for more perspective on the crisis in the Middle East. Chidi, thank you for joining us on the program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Right. There have been massive strikes on Tehran and in Beirut. Residents of Iran or Tehran say that Thursday night was the worst night yet of the strikes against the country. Looking at the security implications for the world, including Africa, what are your thoughts? It's been almost a week now. Tomorrow makes it a week since the strikes began.
Well, it depends on how one categorizes the war. I mean, you can look at it from the purely tactical point of view, like what's happening on the ground. And if you look at it from that point of view, the Israelis and the Americans are having outstanding success. They've been able to destroy Iran's air defense, obviously destroy their, take out their entire top leadership and quite a few senior civilian and military leaders. And they're destroying their, a lot of their military facilities, a lot of their energy facilities as well. So from a tactical point of view, it's an outstanding success. From a strategic point of view, there are a lot more questions. The objective of this war is still unclear. The Americans have put out various reasons for this war, various desired end states, from a change of government to a change to protecting the protesters, to removing the nuclear program, to removing the ballistic missile program. All of these are maybe operationally achievable, but at the end of the day, if the Islamic Republic, as it stands, remains in control of Iran, it's unclear if the Americans and the Israelis have done anything other than kill a lot of people, destroy a lot of things, and create a more hardline, more extreme version of the Islamic Republic, which this time will most likely have more support from its people due to the way this war has been conducted, especially the first strike, which killed over 150 young children. Whilst the Islamic Republic is deeply unpopular amongst the population, the longer the bombardment continues, the more people will side with their own government rather than a foreign power, even if they think that foreign power is helping them.
Right, and U.S. President Donald Trump says that he must be involved in the appointment of the next Iranian leader, dismissing prospects of the succession of the late Supreme Leader's son. And he has also said there's no deal with Iran unless there's a unconditional surrender. What does this mean for Iran?
Well, from the Iranian perspective, this will be considered ridiculous, and it will not be an acceptable condition. The Iranians have their own point of view on how their secession is conducted. It's in their constitution, it's in their culture, it's in their way of life. And as I've mentioned before, if the intent is to change the regime in Tehran, you're not going to do that by bombing. You can bomb Iran from now till the end of the year. The Islamic Republic will remain. At best, you can provoke a civil war, as seems to be trying to happen up north with rumors of the Kurds getting involved, although all the Kurds are saying they're not involved. But even if you provoke a civil war, as Syria has demonstrated, a government can last for a long time fighting against a lot of, insurgents or separatists. And there is no indication that Iran wants to go down the road, or even Iranian people want to go down the road of Syria or Iraq with a prolonged, bloody, civil war. So if Donald Trump wants to change or select the new ruler of Iran, American troops will have to go into Tehran and take Tehran. But that's not going to happen, or most likely not going to happen.
And what do you think will be the effect of this war on other parts of the world, including Nigeria? We do know the stance of the EU. Some of them have started seeing what they can do to protect their own assets, across the region. But what does it mean for other countries? How do you see this unfolding in the next couple of days or even months?
So this is the key crux of it, and the fallout of this war is going to be catastrophic, to be brutally honest. In the first instance, it's oil prices. Now, as an oil-producing country, this should be good for a country like Nigeria. Oil prices are going to skyrocket soon. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. As Iran gets more desperate, it's like they've already targeted several oil-producing facilities. As they get more desperate, they're likely to target more and cause quite significant damage to oil production in the Middle East. This leads to an increase in global oil prices, not just an increase in global oil prices, but an increase in global shipping prices. Tankers, oil that is being produced right now that can't be shipped through the Strait of Hormuz, most of it will have to go onto tankers. That increases the price of tankers. So the world runs on an oil and gas economy. As the price of oil and gas goes up, then that means that the price of every single thing will go up. And we're looking at an economic problem that the ramifications of which are not yet being computed, because on all other kind of oil crises, be it Gulf Wars, whatever it is, everybody knew, okay, this is a war. Somebody will win, somebody will lose. And at the end of that war, everything will come back to normal. Right now, we don't know what the objective of this war is. If it's regime change, then as I said, that's not something that's on the cards. So the uncertainty can't be priced, it can't be quantified, which means it has to be put into the price. So as I said, oil prices will go up. From Nigeria's point of view, that's a good thing. We will sell our oil at a higher price. We have, good sweet oil that many countries will want. But also from a Nigerian point of view, it's a bad thing because we also buy our fuel at the global cost. There is no more subsidy allegedly for Nigerian fuel. And Nigeria still imports fuel, so we'll be buying fuel on the global market at global cost. So the price for things in Nigeria will go up, while receipts for the government will go up. Whether the government uses that to offset costs, maybe reintroduces some form of subsidy, is yet to be seen. But we saw all the corruption that came from the subsidy regime previously, so it will be maybe a regressive move to try and do something like that. At the same time, you're looking at other impacts on the global economy. So the key one will be air travel. So the Middle East has, over the years, developed itself as not just a tourist destination or an expatriate or destination, but also as a transport hub. So planes going to Asia from the West generally pass through the Middle East. Rerouting those transport networks will be quite complicated, mainly because the other kind of main airline route is through Russia or Ukraine, which is now blocked because of the Russia-Ukraine war. So airlines will now have to use more fuel, which, as I said before, is going to be more expensive, using alternative routes and with airports that are not suited for this or don't have the right capacity, increasing the problems from the global air travel. There are many other multiplier effects from the economic side of life, but those are maybe the two big ones that come to mind. Geopolitically, what we're seeing is the complete breakdown of the rules-based order and being championed by the biggest power on the planet. To try to take over attack two different countries within less than 2 to 3 months of 1 year. First Venezuela, then Iran. It essentially means that the rules that have held the world together since the end of the Second World War no longer apply. The impact of that on the rest of the world is quite serious. We're fortunate in Africa that we do not have nation upon nation wars, although we have a lot of internal wars. But the world is essentially being told now is that if you want to withdraw your borders by force and you have the ability to do so, you can do so. So if Nigeria wanted to retake Bakassi tomorrow, they have, there is nobody who's going to stop them. We can already see this tension happening in Ethiopia and Eritrea, where war seems to be imminent. So there will be a lot of issues that will come out of this that you will need very competent people to navigate the country through.
Right, and finally, I mean, what response do you reckon leaders on the African continent could, give to this particular crisis? Though it says it's a Middle East problem, but it could very quickly become a problem of the world, the rest of the world. Most African governments have not really responded, save to say that they're trying to asking all sides to de-escalate. But what kind of response do you think should come from Africa?
Well, the main response from Africa is get their own house in order. The big Africa, if I'm going to be kind of brutal about this, Africa is irrelevant in this situation. We're sitting on the sidelines. I have not heard of a single African country that's looking to evacuate its people from the Middle East or is trying to look at mediating the issues. I mean, the Middle East, the Arab countries of the Gulf, were irrelevant for many decades, and it took a conscious decision to become relevant. As I said, they turned their countries into storage hubs, into transport hubs. They took control of their oil production, and you can see peace negotiations from Ukraine to the Iranian crisis have all been negotiated by Gulf Arab countries. They're legitimate global players. There is no African country that has that stature or that ability or even that intent. Most African countries are very badly run, Nigeria included, who are unable to cater for their people. So it's unclear what role we have in this other than just to be spectators. So the three things that I'll highlight are this. The effect for the global economy will be devastating to Nigeria and to the African continent. The increase in oil price will be devastating to our economy. And therefore, every government at this point, particularly the Nigerian government, should be doing a very aggressive war game as to how they will manage, how you manage the windfall that comes in from higher oil prices, or how you also keep in the stock for the population. Most African countries are highly insecure. Nigeria is a deeply insecure country with lots of insurgencies going on. We recently had U.S. troops deploying into Nigeria to provide assistance. The Nigerian government should be looking at that on war gaming. What is the consequence of this? Does this make us one of the places Iran would want to target? And does it make us, or does it mean that the United States would want more from us? And the final point is, the Middle Eastern states like the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been involved in the wars in Sudan, which have been going on for the past couple of years. We need to understand what's the implication of this. Those wars in Sudan have spilled over into Chad, have spilled over into other countries, and have led to the spread of weapons and, the proliferation of weapon systems such as drones across the Sahel. We as in Nigeria and Africa need to understand what the consequence of this war with Iran will be in the proliferation of weapons across Africa, particularly through the Sahel region.
Right. Actually, I must thank you again for your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
And still to come. Relations between the United States and Venezuela enters a new phase as both countries agree to restore diplomatic ties. Welcome back. Here in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu has approved the postings of 31 career and 34 non-career ambassadors to various countries and the United Nations. For non-career ambassadors, some of the postings include Senator Grace Bent to Togo, former governor of Abia State Victor Ikpeazu to Spain, former INEC chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu to Qatar, and Mr. Reno Omokri to Mexico. Others are Mrs. Angela Adebayo to Portugal, Mr. Femi Fanikayade, Germany, and Mrs. Florence Ajimobi to Austria. For the career ambassadors, we have Ambassador Wabiola Ezenwa Chukwemeka to Cote d'Ivoire, Hamza Mohamed Salau to Iran, Besto Maimouna Ibrahim to Niger Republic and Ambassador Clark Omeru Alexander to Zambia. The Senate confirmed the ambassadors designate last December. Our viewers can get a full list of the ambassadors and their postings on our website, www.channelcv.com. Well, the U.S.-Israel war is reverberating across Europe, where gas prices are already surging. DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbelu joins us now from Berlin with more on this. Chiponda, in my earlier discussions, we talked about the effect of this war on other parts of the world, and my guest talked about those escalating oil prices. How exposed are European countries to the ongoing conflict?
Well, European countries are very much exposed to the ongoing war, and that is because they are net energy importers. Now, most of Europe, Germany included, has been diversifying away from Russian energy exports since 2022. And part of that has also meant importing more gas and oil from the Middle East. And that is what makes European countries more vulnerable to the ongoing Iran war. Now, gas prices here in Germany have already risen to levels last seen after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and they've been hovering just above €2 a liter this week. Now, ordinary Germans, of course, already feeling the pain as a result of that. And this, of course, also comes at a time when Europe's gas storage levels are at historic lows. Now, Qatar, which accounts for around a sixth of Europe's gas supplies, is unable to export liquefied natural gas through the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, is being blocked because of the war. So it's not just oil prices, gas prices have also been soaring.
Which sectors in Europe, are feeling the most immediate impact?
Apart from the direct impact on the energy sector and the disruption on tourism and travel, the other sector that is also experiencing major disruption is logistics. Now, many insurers have, of course, been cancelling war risk coverage for logistics companies, and that is already affecting the business decisions made by logistics firms. Now, two shipping giants, Denmark's Maersk and Germany's Hapag-Lloyd, are rerouting ships around the southern tip of Africa. So this conflict isn't only affecting passage through the Strait of Hormuz, but also via the Suez Canal, and that will increase the cost of moving goods significantly. It's not just about the higher fuel prices that are, of course, a major cause for concern, but also the higher cost of moving goods, which will, of course, now have to travel over longer distances.
And how much worse could the situation get if the conflict continues?
One major concern is that the war could, of course, have a major impact on consumer prices. Now, here in Europe, there is of course, other concerns as well because of the war. European leaders are also thinking about how the conflict could affect the war that is even closer to home, which is, of course, the war in Ukraine. Now, Russia is a major exporter of oil and gas, and it stands to benefit from higher energy prices. Now, if crude oil prices were to rise above $100 a barrel and remain there, it could potentially add $4.6 billion every month to Russian revenues. And that is money that could be used to finance the war in Ukraine. That's because, of course, other countries like China and India may be forced to turn to Russian oil exports because of the disruption in the Middle East. Now, the U.S. has, of course, already granted India a 30-day waiver for it to buy Russian oil. But Russia selling more oil isn't the only concern. The Iran war could also tie up U.S. military aid that could have potentially gone to Ukraine. So European leaders do not want to see this conflict drag on.
Thanks, Chiponda. And that's the world today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joke Rogers.